Hello, I'm Jean-Emile Jamin. Welcome to Eye on Africa here on France 24 for all the daily news from the continent. Coming up on the show, on the first ever papal visit to South Sudan since the country gained independence, Pope Francis urged leaders to make a new start for peace. We head to Juba to hear about the pontiff's message and hear how he was received in the predominantly Christian nation. Then anger grips the streets of South Africa as residents grapple with rapidly deteriorating institutions, infrastructure and service delivery. Hour-long power cuts are already a part of daily life, but now water shortages have also become the norm, with schools and even hospitals without access for days at a time. And then it's time to look ahead to the final for one of African football's biggest competitions. It's Algeria versus Senegal in the African Nations Championship on Saturday night. To find out what to expect, I'll be joined on set by football expert Karim Balde. Thanks for joining us. Tens of thousands welcomed Pope Francis as he arrived in South Sudan on Friday for an unprecedented joint pilgrimage of peace. The pontiff arrived with his Anglican and Scottish Presbyterian counterparts, where they were welcomed by President Salva Kiir at his presidential palace. In a speech to leaders, the 86-year-old Pope made an impassioned plea for peace.
No more bloodshed, no more conflicts, no more violence, mutual recrimination about who is responsible for it. No more leaving your people at rest for peace. No more destruction. It is time to build. Leave the time of war behind and let a time of peace dawn.
Pope speaking to many of the leaders there in South Sudan. For more on his visit and what was discussed, let's hear from France 24 correspondent Seema Gupta, who was in Juba.
Pope Francis made a powerful plea for peace in his speech to those gathered here at the garden in the presidential palace here in Juba. He said, now is the time to say no more of this, with no ifs and no buts. No more bloodshed, no more conflicts, no more recriminations of who is responsible. A very clear message to the leaders of this, the youngest country in the world that has seen great conflict and a lot of bloodshed, reminding them very clearly that the sons and daughters of South Sudan are asking for this, and they will be remembered for what they decide to do here today. Now, the president of South Sudan, President Salva Kiir, also spoke and made note of the fact that because of the Pope Francis's visit to commemorate the event, basically he announced that 2023 will be a year of peace and reconciliation, and that there will be the lifting of suspension of peace talks with the holdout groups that are currently still fighting. Now, this was a key point because you have the two main antagonists that are part of the peace process, but unfortunately there are still groups that have not joined altogether. So this would be a sign perhaps that things are moving just a little bit forward. Now, on Saturday, there will be that very important ecumenical peace pilgrimage in which Pope Francis, together with the other two churchmen on this visit, the Archbishop of Canterbury, as well as the moderator of the Church of Scotland, an Anglican and a Presbyterian, the three of them will be together praying for peace, hoping to help the people of this country that are dealing with conflict, being internally displaced and away from their livelihoods and homes, and also dealing and struggling with hunger.
So more messages of peace coming from the Pope less than a day after 27 people were killed in violent clashes between militia and cattle herders in the Juba region. Well, just north, after generations of non-recognition, Sudan has pledged to take steps towards diplomatic ties with Israel. The two countries finalized a deal to normalize relations on Thursday, with a signing ceremony now expected following a potential transfer of power from Sudan's ruling military to a civilian government. The latest steps come as part of a 2020 deal brokered by former President of the United States, Donald Trump. Israeli Foreign Minister Eli Cohen confirmed the deal on a visit to Khartoum as he became the first Israeli official to be acknowledged by Sudanese authorities. Already struggling without electricity for hours a day now, many South Africans are also living without water. Outages and poor infrastructure have battered the supply system, with power failures causing taps to run dry in parts of Johannesburg and Pretoria, problems also stretching to Nelson Mandela Bay and Cape Town. Even critical institutions like schools and health facilities haven't been spared, with Kalafong Hospital in Pretoria enduring 2 days without water at the weekend. As a result, residents have taken to the streets in anger, like here in the Gauteng township of Shoshanguve. Let's get some reaction.
Our taps has run dry, we are not bathing. We are being sent back when we are going to clinic. If we've got something, there is no water. So this is a serious problem, hence we are doing this. It's not a child's play, it's not. Water is life, and we've got the right to have water.
Our fridges go down, we've got insulin, we've got quite a few products that are kept in fridges. See, it has to be cooled, it has to be kept in a cool place. And with load shedding carrying on in this manner, we're losing a lot of stock as well.
Well, now all of these issues with service delivery in South Africa come at a time when the country's tourism agency has proposed a lucrative sponsorship deal between South Africa and top English football club Tottenham Hotspur. The plans were unveiled this week for a deal set to be worth almost 1 billion rand or 53 million euros. It would see South African tourism branding appear on the Spurs kit in a similar way to Rwanda's deal with Premier League leaders Arsenal. South Africans and opposition parties have responded to the news with outrage, pointing to the country's struggles. And while SA Tourism CEO Themba Khumalo has defended the plan, saying it would boost a battered tourism industry, even the country's presidency now says the spending cannot be justified. And finally, staying with football, but on the pitch now, we look forward to the final match of the African Nations Championships, or CHAN, on Saturday. The game sees hosts Algeria battle 2020 AFCON winners Senegal at the Stade Nelson Mandela in Algiers. And to go over what to expect, I'm now joined by football correspondent Karim Balde. Karim, we've got the two powerhouses of Africa, Algeria, Senegal, facing off against each other on Saturday night. Are the right teams in the final?
In my opinion, yes. If you look at the teams who were in this CHAN 2023, we will talk about Morocco later on, but to focus on Algeria and Senegal, yes, they are the two best teams in this competition. And in a way, when we look at their journeys, we can make some comparison with what we saw in the big AFCON last year. For example, Senegal, they played quite well. They have a balanced team. And so they don't score often, but they don't concede goals. And that's almost the same for Algeria. 4 times the scoreline was 1-0 up to the semi-final. And then there was this massive blow against Niger with this 5-0 victory in the semi-finals. So we see some comparison possible. And yes, they definitely have the most solid teams in this competition.
So then you mentioned that 5-0 against Niger. There was also the 1-0 from Senegal against Madagascar. Those two teams, Niger and Madagascar, of course, playing in that third place playoff. But now that was just a result where Senegal scraped through, we can say. Do they have enough to beat Algeria in the final? What do you expect the result to be, actually?
Well, Algeria has a great advantage because they play at home. And we saw the great support from the Fennec supporters throughout the competition. Every time that was packed, and we all know that Algerian supporters are very proud of their team, and this is the case for this CHAN team. But the semi-final of Senegal against Madagascar doesn't reflect the level because they dominated by and large that match, but they only scored very early into the game, and that was it. They couldn't score the second goal, which could secure earlier than expected their spot into the final, but still have great capacities. And this is a surprise to see Senegal in the final because we look at their clubs and they don't perform in the Champions League, for example, or in the Confederation Cup in Africa. They don't often go to the round of group stage, for instance, but they have good academies. Génération Foot, Diambars, for instance, who revealed great players such as Sadio Mane. So to this year, we see that level, at the academy level, can bring a good team for the AFCON, and we just have to, for the CHAN, and we just have to say that these teams are composed by players who are only in their countries and not abroad.
Well, you talk on that fact, and I want to bring this up because the CHAN is a very different competition to the African Cup of Nations. We don't really see the traditional players which are now based in Europe or in the big leagues in Africa. What kind of teams have been put out throughout the competition?
Yeah, we saw many new players because we don't always watch African domestic leagues, for example, because for many reasons, but the first reason that we can't even see that on TV or even on the internet. So the CHAN is a great opportunity to discover new players. And you talked about Niger and Madagascar. There are some good players, talented players who don't know. One of them has just signed for the club of Mouloudia Alger during the competition. So he will left Madagascar to go at a higher step for the following month and years of his career. So yeah, this is a great moment to reveal some new talents, and this is the only way for them, because if not, we don't look at the championship. So yeah, this is definitely a different competition in comparison with the AFCON, because you don't have any star, you don't have a Sadio Mane, likes of Sadio Mane, of Riyad Mahrez, for instance, but you have to focus on new players, and that's great to see that.
Absolutely, a stepping stone, possibly to be scouted for the big clubs.
We know that there are many scouters there in Algeria.
So, but now one of the teams which hasn't actually appeared at this particular version of CHAN with some big name players, even as a second team, is Morocco, of course. A big miss in the tournament, we could say, just in terms of the quality of football. They may have made the final. How much of a problem has it been to not have them there, and can this kind of thing happen in the future again?
This is a big issue to resolve if Algeria wants, or if Morocco wants to organize the great AFCON in 2025. Both countries are on the starting line to compete for that, and we know in the next month who will organize that AFCON in 2025. So they have to resolve those geopolitical issues with Western Sahara before that. And this is a major blowout for me, because Morocco was the double title holders. They won the two last chance. So this is a shame not to see them competing in this competition. And you ask me about the level of Algeria and Senegal. Yes, they are the best teams there in Algeria, but we will see Morocco very far into the competition with the great players such as Ayoub El Kaabi, who scored 9 goals in that competition in the past. So this is a shame, and they have to resolve that, because if not, it will be hard for the Confederation of African Football to award the competition to Algeria or Morocco if they know that they can have some issues regarding the presence of Algeria or Morocco, depending on who will organize that.
Morocco is, of course, already hosting the FIFA Club World Cup, and we're seeing record attendances for the opening ceremony there. So it would be quite an astonishing thing if in future African Cup of Nations, if it's held in Algeria or Morocco, especially with what we've heard, the quality of what Algeria has put on, that we don't see those teams because of geopolitics.
Yeah, that's true, because Algeria put everything they got to organize in a great way this CHAN, and some of my friends who covers the CHAN right now told me on the phone that, well, it's even better than the real AFCON in terms of infrastructures, in terms of accommodation, in terms of road connections, of airport, of flights, and they told me that it's just unbelievable to see that. So Algeria wanted to show, thanks to that competition, that they are ready to host the AFCON. The last time was a while ago, back in the early 90s. So they made good impression into the eyes of Patrice Motsepe, who is the head of and the president of the Confederation of African Football. So they are ready, and we saw the support even for games without Algeria. And this is rare to see that. For instance, the quarterfinal between Madagascar and Mozambique, the stadium in Constantine was packed. And it shows that there is this passion into the Algerian public to see games even without the Phoenix. So this is a very good sign. But afterwards, we'll see about the geopolitical issue. They have to resolve that before, and not to have that drama we saw with Morocco just before this CHAN.
Sports and politics, you can't actually keep them separate. So on a quick one, expectations for tomorrow night, a score?
Algeria, maybe in the shootout.
Algeria in the shootout, a very tense game we
Yeah.
expect between the Desert Foxes and the Lions of Teranga, Senegal. That is all the news that we have from across Africa this evening. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Karim, for giving us your expertise, and we look forward to a great match on Saturday night. From me, though, it's bye for now.
A war crime shrouded in silence on Marseille's Canebière High Street.
C'est un quartier peuplé réellement d'émigrés.
Tout ce qui est le contraire du nazisme.
Survivors who will never forget.
Ma maman est venue me réveiller en me disant « Habille-toi vite, faut qu'on parte ».
La rafle a commencé. On ne reverra pas. On ne reverra pas.
One last fight in their memory.
La mort, la déportation, les transferts forcés, tout cela, c'est la définition même des crimes contre l'humanité.
Reporters, Marseille 1943, a forgotten crime, on France 24 and France24.com.